This is a bit shocking. We have reports that an aircraft of some kind has just now crashed into one of the World Trade Center buildings.
We were up playing cards in our room, and so we all went, wow, man, there's something going on here, because a second plane just hit the other tower.
An explosion in the second, no, that's a second plane.
Wow, what the hell's going on?
I know it was the States, but I still feel like it's North American soil, and I feel like that's a part of us.
Unbelievable. Oh, my God.
I was upset, and I just wanted to make it right somehow. It's go time.
The Americans are our allies, closest allies we have. Well, we need to help them out.
Hundreds of soldiers are leaving wives and children behind. They are bound for Afghanistan, Canada's first official combat mission in a half a century.
We actually loaded up our magazines with live rounds. Now you know it's something a little different. They said, well, we're flying you right into Kandahar airfield. We'd seen it on TV, so it was all very surreal.
When we came in, we had to do evasive maneuvers with the aircraft. That kind of stuff would get your adrenaline going. You're coming in pretty fast just due to the threat of surface-to-air missiles. That phrase that I used, it's go time, it really felt like it. It felt like opening the Bible and looking at some biblical time 2,000 years ago. It was like the moon.
The door opens up, the ramps open up, and you know, all you see is essentially desolation.
You know, that first step onto the tarmac, you knew you were in a war zone. It looked like it. So it was kind of an awakening.
When we first got off the plane, the American military, they looked fit. These kids were all like California guys and tanned and 19, 20, and 21. Most of us were like late 30s and 40s. And they were just looking at us like, who are these? Why did Canada bring all these old men to fight?
The very first Coyote that rolled off the C-17 when it landed had a I Love New York bumper sticker on the front of it. And when the Americans saw that, it almost reduced them to tears. And in fact, some of them did cry. So here are these big, hardened soldiers, you know, really appreciating that kind of sentiment, that we were all, you know, brothers in arms, and we're working with them to help right wrong that had been done to them. The operation to essentially clear the Shahi-Kot Valley. The special forces had been chasing a bunch of al-Qaeda elements through the foothills of the Hindu Kush mountains, where they were trying to escape into Pakistan, and so they were trying to cut off their escape routes into Pakistan.
We were all like fantasizing, basically, like it'd be cool that if a Canadian group caught bin Laden.
Once we got told that we were gonna go, your adrenaline starts pumping and you get excited.
After having received orders, I'm walking out there with the rest of the platoon, loaded to the gills with ammunition and water. And the Padre was giving blessings, and our faces were camouflaged. 12 Chinooks spool up their engines, and away we go. For a guy who just left Edmonton a couple months earlier, was quite a thing.
Actually, right across from me was a Delta Force sniper. He looks at me and goes, you know, who are you guys with? And I said, we're Canadians. And he kind of just looks at me and kind of gives me a nod. And he said, we're going into a hornet's nest.
And we were all looking at each other saying, what the hell's going on here?
You got to remember now, these are crazy mountains, so we're doing some amazing flying. And then all of a sudden they stop, and the ramp goes down, and the load master, the guy at the back that controls us, he says, all right, get out. The first intelligence estimate was that there were probably somewhere between 40 and 60 Al-Qaeda fighters. That gave a lot of guys pause because it would have meant very close, very personal, close combat. You know, this could be a real dodgy operation.
American B-52s continue to pound Al-Qaeda and Taliban fighters from high in the sky, while ground troops try to cut off their escape routes. But these mountains on the border with Pakistan are a tough place to fight.
Our job was going up there and searching the whole area for any Taliban. We would basically search and destroy. If we found anything, we'd never Taliban, we'd shoot them and kill them. Any things that we found, like equipment-wise or caves, our mission was to actually blow the hell out of them.
We never experienced anything bigger than fleeting shots from these people. They were using a sort of quintessential guerrilla tactic. So we contacted them, but we never really saw them. So we would get shots taken at us. We'd hear that they were, you know, somewhere, so we'd go look for them, and they disappeared by then.
Colonel Stogren said, we think snipers might help. I had a good sniper section, or a good couple of snipers in that organization.
Colonel Strogan told us that we're going to be deploying in support of a special operations task against the Taliban in the Shahi-Kot Valley.
That they put the snipers essentially to provide overwatch on on the companies down below, and essentially to act as cutoffs. You know, if the Al-Qaeda were trying to get out or get in, either on foot or in vehicles, the snipers could interdict them.
What a sniper does, they travel by themselves, and they're given an area to watch over. And they usually travel in either two-man teams. In the two-man teams is a sniper, and then the spotter.
We had our orders, and we had our map with our outline of our area of operation. There was a box which we were to operate in and not go out of. The reason for this is engagement by friendly aircraft. Because we couldn't engage these guys from the position we were in, we made the decision to move outside the box. We knew the risk that would come with that.
If the Americans were getting shot at or anything like that, the sniper would try and find the target and then eliminate the targets.
Got yours?
They made quite a few kills.
In the following days, we identified a three-man team, one of which were carrying an RPK, so it's a light machine gun. And that was identified as the target we'd engage. First round, we shoot at this guy, and no real reaction. They kind of stop, look around. Those type of ranges now, because we're past that 2,400 meter mark, not much of a reaction from them. Make an adjustment from Tim. Fired a second shot. I think he hit his bag. Don't change anything. Breathe, rack another round, send another round down range, which made its impact. Target drops. There's no celebration. It's work. We later learned that the shot that we took at 2,430 meters was indeed a world record for a kill mating in combat by a sniper.
I think you could see the elation in everybody's face coming back. And that they looked their fears or their doubts in the eye, a feeling of victory kind of thing that we managed to pull it off.
They saved a lot of American lives. The Americans were very, very happy with the Canadian snipers. That's when we got back, that's all the Americans talked about was our Canadian snipers. They made the Americans realize that the Canadian forces, the Canadian military, is an actual force to be reckoned with, and what they did up there.
The Canadian troops say that their mission was successful. Al-Qaeda was cleared from these mountains, but leaders warn there is more danger ahead.
We went to Tarnak Farms to do some more training. It was an old training ground for the Taliban, for Al-Qaeda, Taliban. You know, the videos of them doing their little jumps and twirls and shooting.
When we got there, we used it as a training facility too. We took over and used it as a rifle range and a live fire range so we could get ready to go off on some of our missions.
We were out on the range on Tarnak Farms, and we were supposed to engage some ruined Soviet tanks, targets that were off in the distance. We had a fixed position on a wadi, so it was like a very big ditch, and we were on the lip of that ditch, firing at the old Soviet tanks.
The sections were rotating through, and then it was our turn. Grenade! And it just started out normally, as it was supposed to. The firing was happening, and it was going well. No issues, really.
I was firing a Carl Gustav, sort of like a rocket launcher. It's a shoulder-fired weapon. That was the #1 on it. I remember yelling over at another guy, Private Green. I remember yelling at him, and as I was getting ready to fire my last round, there was a huge explosion off to my left.
I heard it coming in. I heard the whistling. I heard something. It was obviously a split second, but I was like, no way.
The blast went right through my body, hit him, and threw him down the wadi, and threw everyone else down the wadi.
The blast was, I can't even describe it.
And then there was nothing. I remember it being eerily calm. That quiet is something that's, you know, haunted me ever since it happened. It's a terrible experience. Just thinking you're alone and thinking you're about to die.
And I just remember looking at my hand, and obviously I was reaching down, I was touching my leg, and I just knew it was covered in blood, and that I needed help.
I tripped over someone in the dark there, and there wasn't much left, and you know, I didn't know what it was until I picked it up, obviously, and put it down. And I know what soldier who it was, but you know, there was just so much trauma.
I was asking, like going through my nominal roll in my head of my troops, if they were all okay. And I was getting a lot of positive answers. And I kind of remember not getting that response for Ricky's name, so.
And then helicopters started coming in, and we started loading. I was with Lorne, and I thought he was gone for sure, just the way he looked.
And I remember them walking down with me on the stretcher, and I don't know how I joked with them. I just said, "Don't drop me, you pricks."
I remember talking to him on the helicopter. I was holding his hand, and he was not responding to me whatsoever. He was so messed up. You know, he basically had minutes to live, I would say, you know. And just so happens the right people were in Kandahar that day that saved his life. A neurosurgeon from the United States military happened to be passing through. And because he was such a great doctor, he was able to do a lot of things that, for Lorne that day.
I'm saddened, quite frankly, beyond words to inform you that several of our troops were involved in a tragic friendly fire accident. An American F-16 fighter jet released one 500-pound bomb. 4 Canadian soldiers were killed and 8 injured. We will not forget these brave soldiers.
The investigation should soon yield answers as to how this tragic accident occurred. Friendly fire is not a new problem, and perhaps more likely when more than one nation's armed forces are on the battlefield.
If you were testifying, you could see them. You could see the American pilots. When I first saw Schmidt, there's a smug look on his face that I wanted to just rip off his face, like he was the victim. Umbog was totally different. When I looked at him, he looked remorseful. He looked like he had made a mistake. But Schmidt, when I saw him and looked him right in the eyes, I didn't see that.
From what I gather from the trial and from everything else is both these pilots were flying back from a mission.
The U.S. military today released several minutes of video and audio from the cockpit.
So they saw some flashing on the ground, so they turned their aircraft towards the flashing and flew over to investigate what it was. One of the pilots called in and said that they feel threatened.
He requested to open up on our guys with cannon fire, with his machine guns.
Request permission to lay down some 20 mic. Stand by. Let's just make sure that it's not friendly, that's all.
He got denied.
Copy 5-1, boss man, hold fire, I need details.
And they were flying around still, and then he thought that they were being fired at again and declared self-defense and rolled in, as he called, rolling in self-defense.
Okay, I've got some men on a road, and it looks like a piece of artillery firing at us. I am rolling in self-defense. Boxman copies. Check master arm, laser arm.
What he was actually looking at was the backblast of my Carl Gustav. His crosshairs were on me, on my weapon system, and that's when he just hit the button.
Bombs away, cranking left. Shack. Boss man. Copy 5-1. Boss man, disengage. Friendly is Kandahar.
It was a 500-pound bomb. Big bomb.
Coming back left.
Through their recordings, you can hear them. They're like, well, I hope we did the right thing and that they were going to be under the microscope now.
I hope that was the right thing to do. Yeah, me too.
Kandahar Airfield is lit up like a Christmas tree. How could you come to that decision to drop a bomb without checking that 4 kilometers or 1 finger's width away from the biggest coalition base in southern Afghanistan? How could you not check?
The military judge's language was severe about Major Schmidt in particular, citing willful misconduct. But the conclusion was his actions were not criminal. There will be no court-martial.
Schmidt went back to his unit. He got a severe reprimand. Supposedly wasn't allowed to fly. But from what I've heard, I don't know if he has. I don't really care.
Do you think justice was served?
I don't know what would have been just. 10 years in jail wouldn't have changed a thing. You know, life goes on, and it has to.
I never got pissed off at the Americans once, because every time we went on any mission, we ever got in trouble, it was just one radio call and said, we need help, and there'd be an American fighter bomber helping us out like this in seconds. So you can't blame the whole American forces.
There are still many questions and very few answers. But today is a day of mourning as the fallen soldiers make their final journey home.
You know, the outpouring of support from the Canadian populace was just amazing. I was, buddies with them all. Mark Leger, Richard Green, Smith, and Ainsworth Dyer. My personal problem with all that was I was extremely hard on Green. It was hard for me because the last thing he would have heard would have been me, jacking him up or yelling at him. So I felt very bad for that for many, many years.
Yeah. I was tasked with driving Rick's casket. Just kind of went back and just kind of chit-chatted with him for a few minutes.
What'd you say?
Basically wished him well. So we'll definitely see you again sometime.
Colonel Stogren got everybody together and said, all right, you may be angry, but the mission carries on. We very quickly, you know, put our emotions to the side and kept up with our mission. Yeah.
In the United States, Colonel Frank Wyszynski, his attitude was, we are brothers and you are one of us. We're going to mourn together. We're going to memorialize these fine young men, and we're going to move on. And what other option is there?